me this one's going to go big.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. Right, two things to cover on the Crazy Time spinny wheel game coming out of the previous video. First off, I want to talk about RTP and betting strategy, because frankly I made a bit of a boo-boo in the way that I was describing how best to play the game. Quite a few people left a comment calling me out on it and explaining why I was wrong, so I do want to correct that. I don't mind being wrong. If I get something wrong, by all means, as people did, leave a comment, tell me why I'm wrong, explain it to me. More than happy to hold my hand up and say, sorry folks, I got that one wrong. So we will go into RTP and betting strategy, and also into kind of game control and how the bonus rounds, certainly the Pachinko bonus round, can vary. It isn't the same every single time. I did notice this when I was editing the video together, and I thought I'd actually need to go back and cover that anyway. So I wanted to do that second bit, talking about the bonus rounds, and we definitely need to do RTP and betting strategy as well. So in the first instance, let's load the game in. I am logged in over at Unibet here. This is my real... Oh, my balance is just out of shot there. There we are, that's better. So then, if you remember in the previous video, basically, if we look at the help file here, my contention was that you were better off covering everything, because the cash values, the four cash values, had the highest RTP. All the cash values, you see there, the lowest cash value still has or the lowest RTP on a cash value is still higher than the highest RTP, that's right, on the features. So my argument was cover everything on every bet, because that way you are getting the highest RTP. In my example, I was using £1 chips, so I was betting £8 a spin, and I said if you're playing down, you see there with the 10p chip, I was saying if you're playing with a 10p chip, you should cover everything. So you're looking at 80p bets. I was saying, well, you could just cover the features, but by doing so, you are lowering your RTP. Now, in the driest technical sense, that is true, that you are getting the highest RTP if you bet on everything, but that really isn't the whole story, because the point is you are going to lose more and you are going to lose it quicker by doing that. Now, part of the reason, and I had to go back and remind myself of how I played the Monopoly spinny wheel game, because the Monopoly spinny wheel game is a little bit different in terms of, let's just go out loud. Oh, it's in the middle of a bonus round. So let's go to the RTP now. Monopoly one, I did a video, and I've got, there is my video that I made a couple of, I had to go back and remind myself of what my betting strategy was on that. And if we go back to the actual game, it was actually really easy on Monopoly. Can you see there? Because the bet on 1 and the bet on 5 have got really shit RTP. First of all, there's only 6 bets that you can make instead of 8 bets. And secondly, it obviously makes sense not to bet on 1 and 5, because the RTP is really shit and they're low volatility cash amounts too. So what I said for the Monopoly video, and I did go back and check, was bet on 2, 10, 2 rolls and 4 rolls, but also making a case for saying that you could not bet on 10, because that's a pretty volatile one, because there's only 4 of them on the wheel. So that was how I came to that conclusion on Monopoly. And I kind of carried over that thinking into Crazy Time, and just sort of I was kind of blinded by RTP. I was focusing far too much on RTP, and saying there that, the cash value's got the highest RTP, so even 1, which is just, stake back plus 1, even there you should be betting on that, because that's got the highest RTP, and overall that means that your return, your aggregate RTP is higher. Now, like I said, that is true, but it's the wrong way to play, because you are going to lose more doing that. And we had plenty of people, so we got loads of comments on the previous video, quite a few people saying the same thing. So, for example, Graham the Goldfish here saying, your logic is flawed. 1 may be a higher return, but it's still less than 100% RTP. The optimal strategy is to not bet at all, but assuming you do want to play, each chip you place down, you are paying to do so. And so, although betting on 1 increases your RTP a little, it isn't if you account for the fact that you are betting more. If you bet £4 on the 4 features, then your losses will be less than betting on all 8, even though your overall RTP is lower. The right answer is to play something else unless the RTP on the things you want to bet on is high enough to be acceptable. And you see there Martin agreeing, and this guy Richard G saying, was just about to point out the same thing. Betting on anything sub 100% payout is never going to decrease the house take. Degsy, as he said, you are increasing the stake. And I went back with my thinking there, trying to get, I don't know why I was having a hard time getting my head around this. It was really, really stupid. I don't know why. This kind of eluded me. But what Richard G, and this I think is the best explanation of it, and this is the one where I thought, oh yeah, of course, that makes sense. So Richard G again is saying, to add to your reply, Degsy, think of it this way. If you bet on everything, it costs you £8. If the RTP is 96%, you expect to lose 32p per game round. If you bet on the features only, it costs £4, and say the RTP is 95%, you then expect to lose 20p per game round. As you can see, your expected loss is higher, even with the increased RTP on betting on all things. There is no situation on this game in which betting on more things to increase the overall average RTP will result in a lower expected loss per game round. So yeah, put like that, that makes it super, super clear, I think. So yes, it is true that your RTP is higher. By covering all 8 things, your RTP is a little bit higher. But because all of the bets are lower than a 100% return, that is, there is a house edge on all of the bets, making more bets when the house has the edge is always going to increase the rate at which you lose money. So the way to play this game, really, or a very valid way to play this game, would be not to cover the cash values at all, and certainly not to cover the 1, because the 1 there is the lowest volatility. Now, we know that the wheel has a multiplier. You know that pre-spin thing. We remember let's just go to there. Do you remember? There we are. So we all saw the pre-spin. That does have a 50 times on it. In fact, you can actually see it hasn't landed there, but so that's got multipliers from 2, I think it goes 2, 3, 5, 10, 15, 25, 50, whatever. There's values, in fact, we can actually see there, but at the bottom end we've got a 2, and at the top end we've got a 50. So that means that betting on the 1 can never return more than 50 times stake. Absolute best case scenario is you bet on the 1, you get a 50 times on the pre-wheel gamble, and then it hits it. So for starters, that's very, very rare. But it also means that you can never win more than 50 times stake by covering the 1. Most of the time, if you cover the 1, because you saw there in that video, I mean, outside of that really lucky hit that I got on Pachinko, which resulted in that big win on the 4 times pre-multiply thing, it's actually pretty rare for what you land on this pre-wheel or this pre-spin here to then transpose to what the wheel actually lands on. So most of the time, by covering 1, you're just going to be getting your stake back plus 1 times your stake. So you are effectively paying 1 whole betting unit for something that's never really going, it almost can't pay. So that's where that, yes, overall, my RTP, by betting like this, by betting 8 chips, my RTP was ever so slightly higher than just betting on the 4 features. But because I'm betting that much more per game round, I'm still going to lose my money faster. So I just fixated completely on RTP. What gives me the best RTP on this game? It's covering everything. And I don't know why I was just completely blind to the fact that in doing so, I was actually betting so much more per game round that the effect, that slight increase in RTP, is dwarfed by the rate at which I would expect to lose money overall. So what I would say, if I play this game again, and I think I probably will because I quite like it, I would certainly not cover 1. Having understood that explanation from Richard G there, which was the super, and that's super clear one there, and from Richard G, Gambler also basically said the same thing. Don't see the logic on betting on 1 simply because it's the highest RTP. It's still below 100% and therefore a losing strategy. All the options are below 100%, but at least the features are fun and have big potential, whereas the 1 and indeed the other numbers don't have that potential. And that's what it comes down to. By covering the 1, even though it's got the highest RTP, it's almost like a wasted bet. What is the point of placing a bet that can basically, the vast majority of the time, even if you hit it, you're not even going to win? Outside of those real edge cases where it comes in on a 50 times multiplier or a 25 times multiplier. So it's paying all that money, it's paying an extra £1 per spin for a bet that's got a house edge. Because we have to accept that all bets ultimately are losing bets because there's a house edge. But if you are going to place a bet, it may as well be a bet that's got a chance of actually returning something worthwhile. That's the thing. So staking the money, taking the risk of placing the bet, has to come with a decent payoff potential. Otherwise, there's no point making it. So if I were playing this again, I would probably... I certainly wouldn't bet on the 1. I completely understand now that betting on 1 is a waste of time. Now, the RTP, this is the thing, unlike Monopoly, the RTPs for all the cash values are actually pretty close together. So I would probably still cover the 5 and the 10, because if you think about it, the 10 there, if that got a 50 times multiplier applied to it, that would be a 500 times stake win. So massively more potential on that bet than on the 1 times bet. And if you think about it, that just comes down to what I said is, placing that bet has to have a reward that makes it worthwhile. So to me, placing that bet, that would be worth, because the potential payoff is worth it. That could be up to 500 times stake. Similarly with the 5, that could be up to 250 times stake. So I would probably still, I think, if I were playing this now, I would cover 6. I'd cover the 4 features. And I think by all accounts, we all agree that you must cover the features. They're the ones that have got the biggest payout potential. Even the 5 and the 10 there are capped. They have a hard cap of 250 and 500 times stake, whereas all the features have far higher potential. We saw 640 times stake on the Pachinko. Here we are. There is this review that was written by, this guy, Rexinomeister Neil, also wrote a review for this site here. And I've found in his review here, he's talking about Crazy Time can do 20,000 times stake. Apparently the Pachinko is capped at 10,000 times stake. So there are some big wins in there. And they've hard capped, you can see that they've actually capped the bonus rounds there at 500,000 euros in currency, because the multiplier potential is so huge. So that is something to be aware of there, that they've actually put a hard cap on the payouts there rather than the actual multiplication of stake. So they do want to protect themselves in that regard, and Crazy Time has substantially greater hit potential in terms of a multiplication of stake than Monopoly does, because of this multiplier thing that's going on there and the doubles in the bonus rounds. I will link to this review. It's a good review. There's a lot of information in there. I will link to that in the video description, but it looks to me like certainly 20,000 times stake is possible. And I just found this on Casinomeister, which apparently is a video of... I haven't actually... Shall we have a look at it? I haven't looked at this yet, so let's have... This is apparently is a video of it hitting 12,500 times stake. The point of this, I guess, is a really long-winded way of saying this is why you would cover the features. When you are making a bet, as the, you know, you are paying to place every single bet. Is it a worthwhile bet? And that is where the 1 and the 2 monetary values just aren't. So you can see, yeah, they've got a 20... Oh, fuck off. They've got a... Did you see that? The pop-up just appeared right in front of it. There we are. So they've got the 25 times multiplier going into Cash Hunt. So obviously it's going to land on Cash Hunt here, isn't it?
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness.
And then that goes... Now, I think Cash Hunt... This is the one that I haven't had... I didn't get it while I was playing it, did I? This is one where you've got to pick something. So obviously it's going to multiply. She's busting some moves there, isn't she? So obviously this is going to multiply everything by 25.
Ashanti with a 25x, so let's multiply everything that's on here 25 times and see what we can get. Whoa, can I like literally get any of that? Maximum multiplier 12,500x. Okay, let's start hunting.
Okay, so this is what. So we're not going to be able to actually see this, are we? Because you have to pick something. This is one of the interactive rounds. So apparently, with that 25 times multiplier, there was a 12,500 times stake prize in there, and somebody did hit that. But it's not going to come through very well on the video, unlike Pachinko, where everyone gets the same thing. This is a bit more like the Crazy Time Wheel. If you remember on the Crazy Time Wheel, you pick your segment. Oh, fuck off. And you get the... So apparently, I can't see it in there, but apparently there was 12,500 times stake in there, and somebody got that. So you can see there are some really big hit potentials. It all comes back down to what are we betting on and what are we trying to achieve. So like I said, I think we can all agree that the features need to be covered because they are where the pays are. Then you can argue the toss about whether you even think it's worth covering the 5 or the 10. I would probably still cover them because also it gives you, I think it's one in every 6 spins. If you look at the wheel, your feature frequency is 1 in 6 on average. So by just covering the features, you're kind of accepting that the majority of the spins are going to be dead for you, and you are just on average going to get something back for your bet every 6 spins, or you're going to get to see some action, as it were, for your bet every 6 spins. So I would probably still cover the 5 and the 10. It gives me more coverage on the wheel. It gives me more wins to watch, as it were. And I think they're worth it. For me personally, because they cap out at 250 and 500 times stake. You could absolutely make the case that you shouldn't even, or you wouldn't want to cover the 5 and the 10. I probably still would, but I totally get now why covering the 1 is pretty much a waste of money. And covering the 2 is probably a waste of money as well, because you're increasing your bet by a substantial amount, which increases the rate at which you're losing money, because everything has got a house edge, for a potential payout that is not worth it. It's just not worth risking that stake for it. So the TLDR there, and like I say, thank you to the comments of people who, like I say, I absolutely don't mind. If I get something wrong, please do call me out and I will go back and correct it. And they're quite right that what I was saying in the previous video, don't cover everything like I was doing there. And it sounds paradoxical, but both of these things can be true at the same time. That there will give you the highest RTP, but you will also lose your money quicker by doing it. So it isn't just about what gives you the highest RTP. It's about how quickly you're going to lose the money and what potential rewards you have for placing those bets. And the 1 and the 2 do not make the grade. 5 and 10, kind of up to you if you want to cover them or not. The features absolutely need to be covered. If you're playing this game and you're not covering the features, there's probably no point playing it. So choose what you want to do. Definitely don't cover the 1 and the 2, 5 and 10 if you fancy, and cover the features. So I hope we've covered that there, and I'm happy to correct what, whilst in the sort of very limited technical sense, that's the highest RTP, but it's still the wrong way to play the game. That was my mistake. Sorry about that. Happy to put the record correct on that one. Now, the other thing that I want to cover is the Pachinko game itself and how this thing is set up and how the game is set up, because it's not always the same. So let's refresh our memory. This is the big winning round from the previous video. Now look at the board here. At the start of the round, you get this graphic on the screen and it basically seeds all the values. And these are not always the same. For starters, can you see there? It's put 2 doubles in. And the other thing to keep an eye on is this light up at the top. Can you see the light going backwards and forwards? Wherever that stops is where he puts the ball. And that there is a super, super good example. Because of the way these games work, it's a little bit like it's basically a coin flip. It obviously can go left or right, but in the same way they're flipping a coin, if you flip a coin 50 times, you're going to find generally, because there's very little volatility or variance in a coin flip, because it's only got 2 possible results, it will even out very, very quickly. The sample size, by the way, that you need to do on a coin flip or any 1 in 2 gamble to work out if it's bent or not is really, really small, because the variance is so low. So in the same way, coin, you flip a coin 50 times, you're probably not going to be far off 25-25. By the time you've done 100, you're certainly going to be getting towards 50-50. And by the time you get to, say, 500, you're going to be very close to 250-250. That principle works here. When this ball is coming down, on average, it's not going to deviate very much. It can do, it absolutely can do, but on average, it's going to end up at the bottom pretty close to where it started at the top, in the same way that a coin being flipped is going to quickly average out in the number of heads. So think of every left or right is basically a head or a tail in a coin, and just look where it finishes up compared to where it started. Can you see there? It was just 1 to the right from where it started. So let's look at the next one. The doubles stay where so the doubles stay where they are, and look where the light is at the top. And we know where it ends up because we've seen this round. So you can see there, we get in that variance, we get in the left and right, but ultimately, look where it ends up. It ends up directly under where it started. And the thing is, look at this light at the top. That position is chosen each time. Whether or not it's a random selection or there's something that's kind of deciding where that light goes, but we've got the same thing again. It's put so your chaps put the ball in, and look where it ends up, directly under where it started. And then we know what happens now. It can watch the light at the top. Where's it going to stop? And look at that. The light stops, and we know where this is going to end up. We know full well where this is going to go. It's going to go into the 640. So you saw there, 3 times on the trot, or 4 times on the trot, that the ball either finished up exactly where it started in terms of the vertical axis, or it was just 1 out, I think, on the first double, wasn't it? So that's the first thing to bear in mind. And then have a look at this. Is from later in the same video. And now, first thing to notice here is what the board looks like. It's going to add those values on, as it did last time, but look at what it adds. There are no doubles in there. So first, right out of the gate, we've got no doubles in there. So the board is different. Every time you can get or there are certainly multiple board configurations that it can give, and it doesn't have to put any doubles in there. And we've also already established that the light thing here kind of influences where the ball is going to end up, because on average, the ball is going to end up at the bottom of its run. It's not going to be a million miles out for most of the time. Obviously, there will be edge cases in the same way that you can flip a coin 10 times and get 10 heads on the trot. It's not going to happen very often, but it does. So there will be circumstances where the ball can kind of do that. But on average, it's going to end up pretty close to where it starts. So on this one here, not only has it put all the highest values on the right-hand side, it's then started the ball on the far left. So it is almost guaranteeing here that this one is going to be a shit pay. So you can see how the board is, not only have we put the weight of good wins on the right-hand side, we've started the ball all the way on the left-hand side. I mean, you could argue there that the most likely result was perhaps a 15 times, but you can see there it didn't need to deviate too much to end up in a low pay. And the chance, for example, of it ending up in 50 times, which was the top pay on that round, is actually very low. So the game there has kind of engineered, so we can have the ball dropping down there be completely random and fair. But depending on where it puts the awards and then where it puts the start point for the ball relative to those awards, you can, to an extent, engineer the result that you want. And let's have a look at the other Pachinko feature from the previous video. So once again, let's look at what it seeds the board with. And see what we get on there. So there's the board configuration. That's a different board configuration again. And then where has it put the light? So our most likely result there is it's going to drop down into 10. Admittedly, again, the 50 and the 25 are quite close by. But just what I didn't notice this when I was making the video. Just how close. See there, it's absolutely directly underneath where it started. So the question, and this came up in the, hang on a minute. This came up in the comments, and there was quite an extended... this guy here, Richard G, was trying to work out the odds of what happened to me happening, as he said there. He came out at, 884,736 to 1, and said there, it did give me a laugh. Easy work for you, Degsy, obviously, which did make me chuckle. But Dave is coming in here and saying that the maths on this aren't actually as straightforward as you may think, and the chance of it hitting anything in there isn't random. Or rather, each result doesn't have the same chance of happening. So in that configuration there are 16 possible results down at the bottom there, but the chance of it hitting that one on the far left-hand side there, the 7 times, is massively, massively lower than the chance of it hitting these ones here. The odds become longer and longer for it to go further out, because most of the time and because we've got enough results here as well. That's the other thing. I've just counted them up. There are actually 20 pegs from the top right down to the bottom. The ball will go through 20 rows effectively. So there are 20 50-50 break points on the way down where it can go left or right. And as per the previous example, if you flip a coin 20 times, you will be surprised how close you get to sort of 10-10 or 11-9 or 12-8, that sort of thing. It's going to be very, very... And the further out from that kind of centre space where you get an even distribution is going to become rarer and rarer. So when you look at this board here, wherever the light is at the top, you are going to see very often very little variance in terms of where the ball ends up hitting in the bottom. And we saw that let me just go back to the big win. And we saw here how this was so critical in this, because on 3 consecutive doubles, they kind of, I think on the other 2, it's actually directly above, isn't it? So it's almost as if you were engineering a big paying round, or you wanted a really good chance of having a big paying round. First of all, you put the doubles in, because we've seen already that the doubles don't have to be in there. And then that light thing at the top, you'd stop it, and on that one there is statistically a good chance that ball is going to end up in the double. Now, this kind of, in the question of well, is the game rigged? If you were rigging it to pay, this is kind of how you would do it. Now, I don't know how random all this stuff is. It may well be that light along the top there could just be completely random. It could be that we have just got the planets are aligned here, and we've got it randomly picked that it was going to be around with the doubles. It randomly stopped that light above the double, and then it randomly stopped the light above the 640. But it does make you wonder, because you could absolutely do that in the other direction. If you wanted a Pachinko round to pay shit, it would be really easy to do it. And we kind of saw in those other ones how they did it. And we saw before, it goes straight down to the 640. We have seen that. But the sort of flip side of that is on this round here. That round there is kind of been engineered. Well, I say engineered. The board configuration, let me put it like that. The board configuration there basically guarantees us, or gives a very high chance of a small pay. not only just because the doubles aren't in there, but also because of where it put the light at the top relative to where the prizes were. Now, this doesn't mean that the game's cheating or anything like that, but it does mean that there are other, not all pachinko rounds on this thing are created equally. And I mean, we already saw that on the coin flip bonus round. I mean, we kind of accept it on the coin flip bonus round. In the coin flip bonus round is the kind of control on the pay of that is what the two values are assigned to the coin. So you can see here that these go up to, there's 100 on there. Now, again, it could well be that these two values are completely random. What we could see there is there could be a random number generator that just says, give me a value between 1 and 100 for the blue side and give me a value between 1 and 100 for the red side. And on that one, it just picked really shit and it picked a 2 and an 8. Or it could be a weighted pick. It could be that there's only one 100 times in the pool, but there are 10 2 times in the pool. So that's more likely. I mean, the cash hunt one, I can't particularly comment on. And the crazy time wheel, I don't know enough about either, but it's certainly particularly stark on the pachinko there, and you can see very, very clearly how that works. One thing that it actually brought to mind, and why it should have, honestly, it should have twigged with me even sooner. This video here, it's one of my old re-uploads from 3 Dice, and 3 Dice, the bonus round on Fortune Falls. When you get, let me just bring that in there. When you get 3, it's basically exactly the same thing. Watch what the ball does here. And I remember talking to Enzo about this bonus round. And he said that every single drop on the ball is a straight 50-50. That's all the game does. It just asks it says, okay, give me a 50-50 on the top, on each of the rows down. So it's 50-50, 50-50, 50-50. There are fewer steps here, by the way. You can see how many have we got? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But what you will note, this is a little montage of me desperately trying to get the upgrades. And you can see there that sometimes you get, but what will strike you is how often this thing ends up going down the middle. And the way that you get an upgrade on Fortune Falls, can you see the butterflies at the far left and the far right hand corner? It upgrades to the next bonus round if you go all the way down the left and all the way down the right. It does happen here. This is the 4 scatters trigger, or it can happen rather. This is a 4 scatters trigger that can upgrade to a 5 scatters trigger, which has got a minimum prize of 400 times stake. But this this video popped back into my head, and this is kind of like I said, there's a little bit of a montage there, and then I picked it up again here because I was really on a hunt for 5 scatters. And what you can see here, though, is even with 6 steps, remember we've got 20 steps on the pachinko game on Crazy Time. Let me just do one. It is 6, isn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
No scatter. Thank you.
And we actually saw, but that is rare. And to get it going all the way down the left or all the way down the right, it does happen, but it is rare. And what you will, and can you see here that the way that 3 Dice have done the maths on this, they've put the shit pays in the middle, and the pays as you go out to the left and right get better. And you get the idea. Let's just see where this one ends up. And is that going to go? Oh, that was so. Obviously, it can do it. It can go to the left and the right. But obviously, we've only got 6 steps here as well. Whereas with 20 steps, the more steps you add in, the more it's going to end up closer to the centre on average. But even on Fortune Falls, you can see I'm cutting away here because the second that you see it not drop down to, the second you see it miss like that, you know that you can't get the upgrade. But you see there how often, even in this small sort of sample here of 6, because you basically got 6 50-50s on its way down, and the regularity with which it ends up straight down the middle or one off to the side is really quite stark. Now, once in a while, it can do it. So here is a 4 scatters trigger. I dug this out before. I knew I'd got it on camera. So here is a 4 scatters trigger. I'm getting a little bit fucking excited there. So there we are. You actually saw it go all the way. And that is rare, though. For it to do that is rare. And look how 3 dice have done the maths on the bonus round. This is a 5 scatters trigger. It can happen naturally, or it can upgrade from the 4 scatters trigger. But look how they've done the prizes. At the outer edges, they've put the 1600 times stake. Then you've got 800, 600, and the smallest prize is in the middle. And I'm sure there was a thread over at Casino Meister where people were asking questions about 3 Dice's games. And Enzo said, yeah, we just do it on maths. We don't cheat you. We don't have to kind of fiddle this. What we've done is to control the payout of this. We've put the biggest pays at the outer edge to make them far rarer. We don't have to diddle you. We can just put a 50-50 choice, a simple 50-50 call to the server on every one of these, because we know that the majority of the time you're going to end up getting 400 or 600. The 800s are going to be rarer, and the 1600s are really going to be quite rare, and they can just crunch the maths from that. They don't need to cheat you, and this is kind of the point that I'm getting at on Pachinko here. They don't need to cheat you, but the board configuration and where it starts the ball up at the top very, very much influences what you would expect to get off the actual round. And let's see what happens to me. And look where it ended up. Dong! Straight down the middle. I mean, it was still a very nice win. 400 times stake, 200 quid. But I'm sure we've seen ample evidence now of how this thing works, and also understand why a lot of the time you're going to end up with the value straight under the ball. Now, this doesn't prove anything one way or the other in terms of this game could be completely random, and all of this stuff is just happening by random chance. But certainly if you were wanting to engineer a big paying round, that is how you would do it. And if you just want a standard shitty low paying ground, that is how you would do it. That configuration there, you remove some of the risk by not putting the doubles in there, and then by putting the shit values under where the ball starts, you can be pretty sure that that's going to be a shit paying bonus round. So that is something to take into account, because then you can get into questions of, well, okay then, maybe, I mean, we have our pre-spin, don't we? So when you get the pre-spin here, I mean, if and I'm not saying that this is what's going on, but it's the kind of question that kind of pops into your head. So when it does this pre-spin, this is how you could kind of control the payout, I suppose, isn't it? So if, for example, you hit Pachinko 50 times, you cut, so you've got a 50 times multiplier on Pachinko. If you then go into Pachinko with that board and that setup, you very much limit what the prize is going to be. But then the other thing is that this board here, that went in with a 4 times multiplier, and it basically gave the perfect setup to get 3 doubles and then hit a big prize. But I'm not drawing any conclusion one way or the other here about whether or not the game is bent, but it did, with those comments that were left on the video, me thinking back to that thing at 3 dice, that the bonus round at 3 dice that works exactly the same. This really isn't quite as random as you might think it is in terms of the result that's given. Doesn't, like I say, I'm not making any judgment here on the game being bent or not, but it is food for thought in how you can, what looks like a completely random game, you just drop it's a real physical ball in a real physical prop, and where it goes, but on average, it's going to end up directly underneath where it started. You saw that, because if you think at 3 dice, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So at 3 dice, it basically finishes there. And you saw how often at 3 dice, it just ends up going straight down the middle. Now put all of those extra results in, and suddenly it becomes very, very unsurprising that it just fucking ends up underneath where it starts. So food for thought anyway, and just something to bear in mind if you do play this game, just to think about how those elements can come into play. So I'm sure I've over-explained quite dramatically there. So just the 2 things that I wanted to cover, make that correction on the RTP side of things, but also that element of control, if you will, for want of a better word, within the actual bonus rounds themselves. And I will say thank you very much to all those folks who took the time to leave the comments on this video and also reply to my reply to clarify exactly what they were getting at. So I will leave that one here. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll catch up with you next time. But for now, it is goodbye.